Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the C-Man, and I want to welcome you, not to the gun show, to the C-Man's Cinema Sit-Down. Although the guns are technically out, it is so nice, it felt criminal for me to put sleeves on, because there haven't been very many nice days in March or April when things are starting to turn toward warm weather, which is where I like to live. And the couple times we have had nice weather in the last few weeks, I've been at work. I'm off today. I was like, I gotta go outside and venture into the glorious sunlight to go to therapy. So I said, let's break out the tank top because it's warm outside. So, there's not much to really speak of here, so there's not much of a show, but like, here you go. Gun show is here for you if you want it. Now we're gonna shut up about me and the lack of arms that I have and turn our attention to actually something that kind of syncs up with this shirt. It's not Stranger Things related, but it is a bit of a creature feature. If you saw my trailer reaction to this movie, I almost cried because I was so terrified. I don't do spiders and snakes. Those are like my I'm out. And spiders, far and away. Like, too many legs, snakes, no legs, neither one works for me. But spiders are my biggest fear on the planet. Like, it could be a spider that's like that big, and I would still be absolutely terrified. I might be able to kill it, but I'm going to struggle if I see it. I'm like, ah! So naturally, in a trailer, you're really leaning into the spider horror elements, and I thought that this was going to be one of those movies that is just there to scare the pants off you the entire time. Like, make you uncomfortable, make you squirm, do something sort of along the lines of Arachnophobia, but dialing up to something bigger by the end of the movie. See, Maniac Nation, I am embarrassed. I got so wrapped up in the build-up, I didn't say the thing I always say, and it's bothering me. So why don't you pull up a chair, take a seat. We are getting ready to dive in spoiler-free into Sting. And I'm happy to report that it was a good thing I didn't trust my instincts, because I was talking to my mom. My mom was kind of nervous for me. She was like, don't do this to yourself. I'm like, yeah, but I love horror movies and I love being scared, and I've never been in an actual movie theater for a spider horror movie. So, like, let's give it a go. Like, the thing I always say all the time about horror, I love going to those types of movies because you're in a safe space. So I almost talked myself out of it on the drive over. C-Maniac Nation, C-Man is pulling into the parking garage here in Port Chester, New York at the AMC. I'm not doing very good right now. I'm getting ready to go see the movie Sting, which is a spider-driven horror movie. If you saw my trailer reaction, you know that I was damn near tears because of how afraid I am of spiders. I'm not entirely sure why I'm going to see this in a theater. Maybe it's because I don't want to see it at home first and react and have y'all have to deal with that. I'm like a little shaky, but you know what? I watch movies. That's what I do. So for y'all, I'm about to go get my pants probably scared off for the next 90 minutes. I hope to see you after. But I went through with it, and I'm happy I did, because this was a really fun creature feature and less of like we're trying to scare the living crap out of you for 90 plus minutes. I really, really dug what writer-director Kiah Roache-Turner did with this one, man. This is like one of these spider horror movies that plays like Arachnophobia meets Eight-Legged Freaks meets Alien. And you're gonna go, wait, what? Two of those things seem to go together. The third one does not, and I'll explain why. The movie's kind of broken up in the sense, like, if you're not familiar, there's a little girl named Charlotte. She's 12 years old. She comes across what looks to be a black widow spider, decides, I'm gonna make this my pet. She feeds it. It starts to grow, and it grows more than what is supposed to happen, to the point where you get like a giant, the entire freaking ceiling of your room size spider, and it looks like it's out for blood. Like, that's what we're going into. And what was really interesting for me here is watching the trailer. I thought the small spider looked really good, even though you could tell it was CGI'd. Like, it looked real enough where I was legitimately terrified. And then when you saw the shots of the large spider, I was like, it looks like they might go toward practical effects with the bigger one. And that's exactly what they did. And I kind of loved how Roache-Turner utilizes the spider and kind of plays in those three realms. Like the front part of the movie, when the spider is small, even though it's not doing what Arachnophobia did, which was using actual spiders, for certain parts of that movie. But it's CGI. It's CGI the whole time, and I won't lie, and it helped me personally. On the bigger screen, like on my computer screen, looked very legit. On the big screen, looked very CGI. Made things easier for me in that realm. And I really do think Roache-Turner kind of plays with an Arachnophobia style of like, let's get into the fears that spiders create, right? The idea of a spider crawling on a person's face or in and out of a mouth, just jumping out of nowhere when you don't see it coming, right? Like doing things that spiders do that lead to people who actually have arachnophobia. You're playing with all of those elements with the spider in that first act. Then the spider starts to get bigger, and as it gets bigger, you shift from the CGI to the practical. And that, I'm not going to lie to you, played more like Eight-Legged Freaks in the sense that you were getting way more jump scares, and like it was way more suspensey in the first act. Then you start to dial up more of the jump traditional scares. And the practical spider stuff just works really well. Like, it looks fantastic. There are some really funny moments with it where it's like, you've seen it move on like the ceiling when it's CGI'd, and it moves pretty quick. And then like there are times where it's in this apartment building has all these air ducts that connect to each other, and it's like this big stiff thing moving down. So like it's one of these where it's got campy elements to it where you're able to start having fun, and it does play more like a traditional creature feature. But then when you get into the third act, Roache-Turner takes this direction kind of swerve where he's looking at this spider as if you were looking at Alien. Like, moments in the air ducts have Alien vibes. There's some like strobing effects in and around the spider sometimes that give me Alien vibes. And then there is this little girl that is responsible for bringing the spider into the picture in the first place, and she is giving off hardcore Ripley vibes down the back end of this movie. Like, she figures out something that can harm the spider, and it can be done in the form of a liquid. So she has like a water gun. So she's literally running around like a gun, doing Ripley type things, and it was so freaking fun to watch, and was not at all what I expected from this movie in the least. And that's the thing I like the most from what Kiah Roache-Turner does, is like, yes, he's leaning into spider horror. Yes, he's leaning into the things that make spiders scary, but he's also leaning into that brand of horror that can be extremely entertaining and a lot of fun when you're talking about a creature, and playing it like a creature feature more than a let's build tension and make you uncomfortable and terrified for an entire movie. Like, there was a lot more fun being had in this flick, and a lot more spaces where I was able to breathe. I never once got even close to tearing up from fear in this movie. And at the end of the day, like, it really worked as like a single location, single creature, one main protagonist, and like some other people that obviously the spider is going to take out. And when you get into those different places, I really dug what Roache-Turner was building, and some of the imagery, specifically with when the spider is full size, like that's where it was more scary than the little CGI spider, because this is tangible, it's practical. There are people actually looking at this thing, and like it gets in close sometimes. And like, it was really, really effective. But I think my favorite part of the movie, besides like that creature feature fun, ended up being Alyla Browne, who plays Charlotte. She is tremendous, man. Like, watching the trailer, I did not know they were gonna put this much on this little girl, or that her character would be so enjoyable on screen. Like, right from the get-go, she's a little asshole in the sense that, like, who comes across a spider that looks like that and goes, I'm going to make this my pet. And then when it starts to grow way more than a normal spider would grow, like your attachment to it is it's not an okay thing. Like you are going to be responsible for deaths. But that said, she's also super charming, super adorable, and really easy to root for. Like, yes, I think some of the things she gets into, I would not have been doing at 12 years old, which makes her a little bit braver and maybe a little bit more off than I was. But when she's just functioning as a little girl, she's got some real drama going on in her life. You know, her parents have split up. Her dad has been not in the picture because he's supposedly overseas, and there's a new guy in you know, her mom's life. I don't know if they're married or not. They might be, because I think her mom and this guy have a kid. Like her little brother comes from this guy, and it's one of these where not everything in this part of the movie really worked for me. But like there's this thing where like she clearly looks up to her, you know, supposed stepfather. She's never called him dad. She's never referred to him as a stepdad, but she seems to be cool with him. Like he's into comic book art. She really digs comic book stuff. She kind of has her own comic book ideas that he's trying to bring to life in a real way. And you know, there are just elements in the movie where you can really feel for this girl. And then when the horror stuff starts happening, it was really fun to watch Browne go from being super confident and you know, sort of this like little rebel badass to like she has moments where she is straight up 12-year-old. Like you forget that she's 12 and then you're like, oh no, she's really like when the horror things hit her sometimes, she reverts being back to a little kid. And it's one of these things where having, you know, lots of different siblings and cousins and being around young kids, like you see that sometimes where it's like they get a little full of themselves and they're like, I know what I'm doing. But when they're presented with something that they don't know what to do with or is actual like horror stuff, you just see him revert back in, and Browne handles all that stuff really, really well. And then still, despite all of that, is able to get her bearings enough to go be this badass little mini version of Ripley. And all of that stuff played tremendously. Now, when you're talking about the things that didn't play for me, this Ethan character, the potential stepdad, played by Ryan Corr, I just hated him. Like he has these moments where you think he's being like, oh, you know, he is kind of like the cool stepdad. And like I've dated two women that have had kids before, you know, and I know what my personal thoughts of, you know, if those relationships would have gone super long term and I was involved in these kids' lives, I had very, very specific ways that I would go about things. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not the father. I would never expect to be the dad. I just want to be there to support you and make your life better than it was or is, right? Like, everything around me needs to be a plus, not a minus. And Corr's Ethan gives off vibes of that, but that's not who he is. He does what he wants. He's in things for himself more often than not. And by the midway point, like, you are straight up rooting for the spider to get this jackass. And mild spoilers, but as you get toward the end of the movie, the way in which Roache-Turner tries to resolve that situation just didn't really work for me. That said, I thought Corr did a great job at being an asshole. And like when he is like, I thought it was effective in that way. It's just like the redemption element for that character, I didn't think got a natural enough play where it was like, yeah, I'm rooting for this guy to make it out at the end of the movie. Like, I was rooting for him to die the whole movie. But that said, everybody else in this cast that's also doing good work is fairly enjoyable. Jermaine Fowler, I love this dude. Like, anytime he pops into anything, he's extremely charismatic. He's very funny. And I liked his character. Like, he's the exterminator. So he's coming in to face off with this thing, and he's got some wonderful back and forth with different people that are in the apartment building. And the rest of the cast, I think everybody here is really good. Penelope Mitchell, who plays Heather, Charlotte's mom, I thought she did a good job. Not a ton for her, but you know, it helps in understanding the family dynamic and the situation. And I do like how she comes to Charlotte's like protection when she needs to, you know, specifically with Ethan. Like there are moments where Heather has to step up and check Ethan because what he's doing isn't cool, and I really appreciated that she did, and I thought Mitchell handled all that stuff really, really well. Then also in the building is her mother and her aunt, Helga and Gunter. Gunter kind of runs the entire apartment complex and has Ethan hired Ethan kind of as the super for the building, and then Helga is clearly dealing with some sort of dementia, where she is not coherent very often. And I thought Noni Hazelhurst really nailed that stuff, as did Robin Nevin with the Gunter character. And then there are two other people that are in the apartment building. Danny Kim, who plays Eric, he's kind of like this loner who lives upstairs, who's kind of like into science-y type things, and is someone who Charlotte goes to be like, have you ever seen a spider function the way this one does as far as like growing? And she is ultimately trying to get like one of his fish tanks that he has to put the spider in. So he kind of plays into like trying to figure out what's going on with the spider. And then Sylvia Kolaka, who plays Maria, she's just another tenant in the building who has a dog. So when the dog pops up in places, you're like, oh man, wonder what's going on with Sylvia. And she's the one in the trailer that we've seen the spider crawling like on her face and out of her mouth, and all of that stuff was as terrifying and disturbing as I thought it was going to be, and then some. But overall, I really enjoyed this cast a lot. And like I said, Alyla Browne is really the one who kind of is the linchpin that you were attached to riding with for the whole movie. And I just thought she was spectacular. And the other thing, too, that I noticed when it comes to like the overall movie is I really, really liked what we got from the score that comes to us from Anna Dubrick. I thought she did a great job in injecting fun. Like it was one of these things where I realized it was going to be like a fun creature feature because of the scoring. Like the scoring does some wonderful moments of eerie, creepy, spidery type things, right? Like when you're going through that whole bit with Maria, like yeah, that is the squirmy tension building, but there is a lot of fun kind of being injected into the score where it's like, oh, we're going to have a different tone to this movie than I thought we were going to do. And I really, really think Dubrick nailed the tone through the scoring. Like it was something that allowed me to start breathing before we even got into things, because I could tell we were going in a different direction than what I thought this movie was going to do. And then shout out also to Brad Shield, who's our DP here. Like I said, I think some of the setup specifically in the air ducts and how you're able to capture images that like remind you of Alien or remind you of Arachnophobia or something like Eight-Legged Freaks, like he does a really good job of putting the camera in spots that show you inspirational things that probably hit Kiah Roache-Turner from the writing and directing standpoint, that just kind of mesh and really create sequences where, like I said, you get to that third act and you're like, I feel like I'm riding with a mini Ripley. And a lot of that has to do with how the camera functions there. And yeah, at the end of the day, I was terrified of walking into this movie, but walked out going, I'm glad I came, because it was a really fun creature feature. So let's get the Sea Maniacs up. Like I said, I think writer-director Kiah Roache-Turner does an excellent job across the board with this. I really appreciated that he leaned into the creature feature and not like, let's just scare your pants off for an entire movie if you hate spiders. This is a movie that if you are afraid of spiders, you're going to have moments that hit you, but you're going to be able to enjoy the heck out of this movie if you are a horror fan. And I just loved how he played with, like I said, a combination of something that felt like Arachnophobia meets Eight-Legged Freaks meets Alien. Like it just had really interesting elements that I didn't necessarily see coming. And outside of the family story stuff that didn't always jive with me, specifically around Ethan's character, everything around Charlotte is fantastic. I love the apartment building setup. I love how this whole spider thing starts and where it all ultimately goes. And it gives you things that are going to get under your skin, figuratively, not literally. And if it's literally, I see a doctor. But like, you're going to get that stuff. You're going to get pop scares. You're going to get jump scares. And you're going to get kind of like fun sci-fi horror action. And I didn't necessarily think that's where this movie was going to go. But ultimately, I was so happy with it. And like I said, again, Alyla Browne carries the living heck out of this movie. And while I don't necessarily like all the elements, I do think that everybody that is here is turning in good work for Roache-Turner on the acting side. And yeah, I mean, score, cinematography, those things all clicked for me. I dug this movie a lot more than I was expecting to. I'm going 3 out of 5 C-Maniacs. Not the most terrifying movie in the world, which was my initial expectation. But because I was afraid of that, the switch into creature feature fun really, really worked, allowed me to enjoy the movie, and it still hit me with some of the spider scary things that you get in those types of horror movies. So not a movie I saw coming the way that it's delivered, but I'm very glad that we got what we got, and I really liked how Kiah Roache-Turner played with this whole thing. So I'm going to shut up. I'll flip it over to you guys. Want to know what you're thinking in the horror realm. What are you most scared of? Are spiders up there? Does something that sounds like Arachnophobia meets Eight-Legged Freaks meets Alien sound terrifying to you, or does it sound like a good fun creature feature? And if you've had a chance to see Sting, what did you think? Coming off my immediate reaction, I've talked to a couple of you guys that really dug the movie as well, so I would love to hear if you guys were digging it. If you weren't digging it, look, this is a movie I could see somebody walking in and going, I didn't get that, what you got. So was this a different experience for you? Don't spoil anything, but anything you got, good, bad, indifferent, on Sting, put it down below in the comments section. Look forward to talking to you down there. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, you want to come hang out with the C-Man anytime we're talking movies, TV, trailer, reactions. This week we've got Abigail coming out in the realm of horror, so you want to be here for my thoughts and reactions on that. Hopefully there'll be some new trailers coming out in the coming week or so, coming out of CinemaCon that we haven't gotten yet, so you want to be here for those things, or just anything that falls in those realms. You dig the vibe, you want to show a little love and support, come join C-Maniac Nation. Super easy. Jump over there, hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell if you want those alerts. And until next time for the C-Man's Cinema Sit Down, I've been the C-Man. I'm signing off. Peace. Hey, what's up, C-Maniac Nation? Winter Ken here, where we grow out our roots and our beard, letting you know that you can see some new C-Man videos right up here and right down here. And if you want all those videos and show that man a little love and support, come join C-Maniac Nation right over there, and the C-Man will catch you on the next one.